Peggy set.
Thank you.
Never have so many cheated so much for so long, for so little. So, I'm going to start off with, in chronology, as these poems were written, and how far this group has come from its beginnings. Through the eyes of a stranger. The Weston was shiny and decked to the nines. The Martin Luther King Peace Poem competition rocked. The mayor was amazed that 300 people came to recognize so few. It was just poetry, for God's sake. No, sir, indeed, it was not just poetry. It was the maturing of a group of adults whose diligence was recognized as it should be. They were and are celebrities of the highest order. 20 years of loving each other for the love of the written word. Los Angeles has the Academy Awards. Maui has the Maui Live Poetry Society. A living, breathing organism drifting just south of the Milky Way with Belinda at its helm. She has matured into a beautiful leader. Lawrence, a just statement. Frank, a guru of enlightened self-reliance. The group is traveling at the speed of light through the North Pacific. The afternoon at the Weston and subsequent soiree was a perfect reflection on the mirror of Maui's most beautiful, gifted people. I am so very honored to view it through the eyes of a stranger. If you put enough good chemicals into a good beaker, you might produce real change, earth-shattering change. Streaming at Mach speed is the Maui Live Poetry Society, with a little bookstore that thinks it can. How absolutely brazen, arrogant, and wonderful through the eyes of a stranger. Arsonist. I always liked Belinda. Didn't believe for a moment that the charges were true. The thought of it changed me as a person, made me skeptical, dejected, and blue. She's behind bars now, convicted by a jury of her peers. She didn't even offer a defense, defenseless through the years. They got Gary, too, as an accomplice after the fact. Pyromania strikes deep, can cause immediate and lasting damage. And she did it in the schools with where our children reside. Oh, the most demonic of women. She would do it openly, shamelessly, and often like a crack addict. No wonder she's gone. They arrested her one Tuesday night in the library, no less, trying to light fires in the hearts of our young people. The heretic, who does she think she is? Have you seen that stuff they're writing? She plays with their heads. That poetry, that verse, that abomination, it's worse than rock and roll. What does she want to do, change the world with poetry? Perhaps she will. A girl's name written on a wall, tacked by a number 2 tacking nail, is a girl's name written on my bedroom wall. At first it hung, lifeless, staid, unpretentious, as a new puppy trying to find its bearings. A girl's name left in a palmery, champagne ice pail, a wisp of a girl, specifically a 53-year-old, 5-year-old, exploding with personality, daring me to love her. I took the dare. The girl's name is written on a note in my bedroom wall. The girl's name is written on a note deep inside my heart. 5-year-olds have a way of doing that somehow. I never really saw her coming, this thief in the night. She cried immediately when I told her, no, you're not, asking if she could come and talk with me and sit with me after a human era. Those precious tears, trying to swipe them away, pretending not to be hurt. There was a girl's name written on a note on my bedroom wall. There's a girl's name written on a note tacked to my heart. This thief in the night came tiptoeing on my beach on Christmas Day in the afternoon. This pixie, this wisp, this Christmas present from God. Utopia. If everything can be expressed by mathematical equations, why shouldn't a utopian society be founded in paradise? And why shouldn't it have to do with poetry, the oldest expression of mankind? And why shouldn't it have to do with educating our children? If there is to be a utopian society, why shouldn't it have to do with Joseph Campbell and the writing of screenplays as evolutionary tools? And why shouldn't it have to do with Ayn Rand and F. Scott Fitzgerald and the writing of books as evolutionary tools? And why shouldn't it be done through our schools? If there is to be a utopia, why should it not be founded in the Pacific? And why shouldn't it be founded in Maui by two pure souls for the greater good of mankind? And why should it not be predicated upon a concept of world peace and known by the United Nations? If there is to be a utopia, it would not be, why shouldn't it be composed of utopian adventures of the past, a composite of trials and errors and failures? If there is to be a utopia, should it not be better without rules, prefaced with the understanding that we care for one another, and be kind as Wide Garcia, as loving as Belinda Gong, as sagacious as Gary Kubota? If there is to be a utopia, why shouldn't it be as fair as Bear? Why shouldn't there be a utopia? And why shouldn't its moniker be the Maui Live Poetry Society? This is a tribute to one of our people that we lost, a very gifted poet who everybody was crazy about. He went to Italy, to live in Italy from Philadelphia at the age of 20, spent there maybe 50 years, but he came with us and was a magnificent poet, so I wrote this as a tribute to him. Ask the old man by the sea. There is an old man who lives by the sea that I go to when things are difficult for me. He listens intently with his crumpled hat and withered hands and gives me the best advice he can. There is an old man who lives by the sea who has a great light he shines on everyone he meets. And I wonder, but never ask, if there's something possibly I could do to show my love for this old man by the sea. There is an old man who lives by the sea, and when my friends don't quite have time for me, when they have oh so deftly run down the streets, leaving me mangled with my quota of defeats. So I go to my friend, like a penitent and confessional, and he gives me great advice, sage, stern, sensible, never judgmental. And I wonder if he has any idea of his value, worth, or principle. There is an old man by the sea. So many people don't know him, never see him, and there are times I wonder if he is a figment of my imagination. There is an old man by the sea, and he is a composite of you and me, a universal Don Quixote, who sits invisibly on a certain wall there by the sea. Sometimes when people are less than they should be, I see him trip them in front of their friends. Sometimes he pulls down their pants, embarrasses them for things they should or should not have done. No one seems to see him but me, but he's giggling, wiggles his nose. There is an old man by the sea who picks me up when I fall, but most of all he guides me to keep me on my true course. There is an old man who lives by the sea with crumpled hat and withered hands that I love, and we watch the sailboats come and go, and he'll regale me with fantastic stories of sailors and pirates and gold-buried treasures, of Puck and Honolulu and wonderful earthly pleasures. There is an old man by the sea that I trust and adore, trust implicitly to be there for me on that stone wall in Lahaina there by the shore. And I see him with his cane and hat, and I will never forget him. And when I write, I will think of Don Denelville, and I'll see those sparkling eyes and that mischievous grin, and he will forever be my old man by the sea. I felt the need to write a longer poem, so I did this one. A stormy night in the black leather flight of my imagination. Beyond a certain point it becomes rather vague, a molecular transformation without reservation. In the stillness of my solitude I could use a good beatitude, something to change my seemingly sagacious attitude on this, a stormy night in the black leather flight of my imagination. The recreation of lost memories down the endless road of my awareness brings me to your door. In an undistinguishable, fog-provoked haze, I misinterpret your deflected gaze on this most stormy night in the black leather flight of of my imagination. Perhaps if I'd known you as a child, perhaps if we'd gotten rather wild, taken our time with the right amount of wine, I'd better understand that gun in your hand on this most stormy night in the black leather flight of my imagination. Knowing your predisposition towards all things loving, having some sedate opinion of your disillusionment, I am lost to believe the awareness you perceive on this most stormy night in the black leather flight of my imagination. Perhaps we should begin again with the pen again and write love poems again, like that one perfect night at Potawatomi Inn, to add substance and radiance to the remarkable you and restore sanity to this stormy night in the black leather flight of my imagination. Knowing my life is precariously resting in your tight index finger, aware of the pain I had unintentionally inflicted, much too confused that I had abused to the extent you felt no other course could be used. Yet, in the crisp shining light of a new dawn, I shall butterfly kiss away those prodigious tears and soothe this most stormy and recalcitrant night from the black leather flight of my imagination.